Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Scrap Your Scraps, another Thursday night. This is Crafty Chris. And tonight we are going to make a layout using bits and pieces of our leftover materials. The only piece that was a full sheet was my mat. And I'll explain the cutting right in a moment. So first of all, I suggested that you have at least 3 pieces of paper that could overlap to make a 12 by 12 paper. So that's what I've got here. Now we are not going to use all of the paper. We're actually going to cut it down because I want to save what's going on in the inside for my scraps for another project. So the first thing we're going to do is with your cutter that has a blade in it where you can stop the cut line at any point. A guillotine is not good for this. We are going to make a 1-inch cut from top to bottom, but we're going to stop an inch short at the bottom and an inch short up at the top. So I'm going to actually start my cut at 1 inch at the bottom and go up to 1 inch at the top. So that gives me a 1-inch border. And then I'm going to finish off my 1 inch down to that cut line, and you'll see that it comes off almost immediately. And up to that cut line. There we go. So now I have this nice piece of paper I can put back in my stash and use later. So this is one side of my base page. I know it's not a whole page. This is going to be the other side of my base page, and I'm basically going to do the same thing but in reverse. So I am going to, well, I could do it, doesn't matter if I do it in reverse or not. So I'm going to cut another inch wide strip starting at 1 inch up from the bottom. Whoops. There we go. And stopping 1 inch from the top. And then I'm just going to finish that cut to that 1 inch mark. And over here, I'm going to do the same thing. Oops. There we go. And now I have this nice piece I can still use for another project. So now I have both sides of my what do I want to say? Both sides of my background paper. Now, I'm just going to cut a strip, 1-inch strip off of this because I don't need this whole paper. So I'm going to take one full 1-inch strip off of this. And now I'm going to only use as much as I need to finish off my 12 by 12 paper. So to make this a little easier, I'm going to put my 12 by 12 ruler up here. I do have a mat. This is a mat over top of my my grid, but I'm just gonna seal it there. But I'm not going to lift my mat up because it sticks to the grid. I'm just going to tape that down like that and line up my sides as easily as I can. There we go. And literally, whoops, I'm only going to need, I'm just going to have an inch over on each side more or less. So I'm only going to need 4 inches of this. I'm going to get my small cutter and just trim off 2 sets of 4 inches. And that'll leave me 4 inches to go back into my stash. So there's 2 sets of 4 inches. Okay, and this is going to go in my stash. All right. So now just going to move this down to the bottom of the page so I can align, excuse me, my pieces. The reason I'm not taking my mat off is because I'm going to be doing some mixed media later, and I don't need to have it. I don't need the grid. I can do it this way. Just another way if you don't have a grid mat. So I'm going to put some adhesive on both sides of this. Doesn't matter what you use what you have. I have a broken tape runner. I always have a broken tape runner. And just going to use 2 pieces of broken tape runner. It's dusty outside today. Whoop. Okay. So let's get this lined up again. And I'm going to tape this piece on here. Make sure I lined up that piece. And I'm going to tape that piece on there. That was easy enough to do. I'm going to switch it around, do the same thing again. Oops. Look at that there. Okay, so it's a frustrating thing, but I am not going to waste this tape. Luckily I have the mat down so I can peel it off. All right. So now we are going to do the same thing. Make sure we have it at 12. Put that there. Make sure this is at 12. And then push down. There we go. There's my 12-inch outer workings. And I don't throw out my tape either. I reuse it. This just needs to be wiggled down a little bit more. Double check that measurement. Just a little bit off. There we go. Okay, so now this is going to be the next thing we're going to do. I have asked you to have a coordinating washi tape, and you're going to trim it so you have a nice square edge. Have a nice square edge happening there. And I'm just going to eyeball this, but I'm going to give myself about a quarter, about an 3/16 of an inch from the corner edge. And I'm going to draw my tape. I should do it this way so you can see what I'm doing. That same distance, 3/16 of an eighth, across the bottom of the paper. And looks like I might need to release it. Okay. Then I'm going to make a nice clean cut. There we go. So there's one side. I'm going to crisscross it again. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to start with the edge, butting up to it. There we go. Draw that down. Just eyeballing. There we go. And again, cutting that off. Nice straight line. There we go. All right, so that's our second paper, even though it isn't a paper. That would be as if we had two mats. So just make sure you have it all pushed down nicely, because you want the color to be whatever color is coming through the white there is kind of bluish. And now this paper is an 11-inch paper, and it's going to sit in the center of that. So it appears that you have two mats below your base paper, and I think that's kind of fun. There we go. So I want the top to have the light and the bottom to have the light. So I am going to put some tape along the edges. All right, so and now we're going to, I want to make sure that I have bubbles where I want them. So that gives me about 3/8 of an inch all the way around. There we go. And it's a great way to use up old paper that you don't have like a 12 by 12 for. So there we go. So this is what it looks like on the bottom. You have your pieces that you compiled together, and then you have your washi tape going around the edge, and then you have your piece sitting on the front. All right, I'm going to put this red border because it coordinates. I asked you to have some sort of a sticker border, and it coordinates with the red that's going there around the outside. And I have this about, I want to say, let's see, let me give you the exact measure. So from the edge, the outside edge of the paper, I'm going to put it 4 inches down. And it's going to go right from one side to the other. So maybe I should mark that so I don't make a mistake. So on this side, I'm going to mark my 4 inches. And on this side, I'm going to mark my 4 inches. So that when I put it down and I line it all up with my marks, there we go. Oops. There we go. Okay. So there is your 4 inches. Now for some reason that makes me feel like we're off. It could just be the bubbles on the page. Nope, we are definitely off a bit. So if you don't push too hard on your sticker, you can readjust. So there's my 4, and there's my 4. That's better. There we go. Readjusting as I go. All right. Now, we'll worry about the flowers and everything else afterwards. So I've asked you to get groups of coordinating pattern paper and cut them to specific sizes. So let me just review the sizes. So I had asked you to, where did this guy go? Right there. Okay. To get coordinating paper, it didn't have to be all red or all any particular color. I used a multiple range of colors, but I tried to stay in the greenish, like a minty greenish to reddy, burgundy, orangey colors, just so that they would coordinate together. Oh, I know what I forgot to do. But that's okay. We'll talk about that later. We do need to use some of that paper we cut off to make a mat for one of our photos. Okay, so you should have one that is actually a 3 by 3. So 3 by 3 inches. And then your next size is 2.5 by 2.5, and you should have 3 2.5 by 2.5s. And then your next size is 2, so you should have 4 2s. And your next size is 1 3/4, and you should have 3 1 3/4. And then you should have 1 1/4, 3 of those. So 3 1 1/4. Okay, so you do have a total of 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Am I missing one? Oh, because one is a photo. 15. So one of your photos is a 2.5 by 2.5. Okay, which matches that size. So let me review again. You'll have 3 papers at 2.5 and a photo at 2.5, and then the others. All right. So now let's lay these out. I'm going to start with the big ones. Now this one happened to already come with the sides trimmed. I'm not going to trim the others. You may, if you want to, trim, but I am going to actually leave my sides as points and just have the one that is fancy. So let me just get my sizes here, because I'm going to do this by size, and then we're going to play around with it to get it all on, and there will be some trimming required because some of them go off the page. All right, so starting at the top, about I guess I'm gonna say, actually maybe starting at the top is not a good idea. All right, so I'm gonna grab one of my 2-inch pieces, and it's going to go off the page around there, and it's going to be on the actual mat about 3/4 of an inch. And then beside that, I'm going to have one of my other pieces that is 1 1/4 inches, and it's going to go right beside it, just a little bit down from the strip we put, the sticker border that we put down. And then I'm going to grab one of the, this is a 1.5 inch ones, and this one is going to stay on the paper and just kind of fit into that little area that we created. Okay, something like that. And this are kind of centered on each other. Then the next thing I'm going to get is one of my 2.5 inch ones, and I'm going to put that right beside that with about the same distance as the other. And of course we're going to mess around with this a little bit to make sure it all fits in. And then I'm going to take a different 1.5 inch, and I'm going to one 2.5-inch one, and I am going to just put it up at the top. This is one that we'll probably trim off. All right, and then I've got another of my 2-inch ones that's a different color altogether, and I'm going to put that about the same distance apart, just a little bit down, so we're kind of filling the space. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my smallest, another color of my 1.25-inch ones, and it's going to sit right in this space. Alrighty, so we're kind of getting a little bit of a grid feeling happening here. Okay, and maybe I'm going to focus that centered on there like I did on here. There we go. I think I like that better. So this is kind of what I'm playing with up at the top. Then I'm going to put my fancy one down at the bottom, about a 1/2 inch in from the edge of the the base paper here, and just a bit off, the same amount as these guys are if possible. That might have to actually sit right on the edge. And then from there, I'm going to take one of my is it 1 3/4? Yep, 1 3/4-inch pieces. And let's see, I am going to have that just come off the paper. So it's going to go in about the same amount as the one that's up there, with the kind of same distance between it and the edge of the largest piece. Then I'm going to take another one of my 2-inch ones, and I'm going to place it, lining it up with this one. I might play around with that a little bit, but we'll see. And then I'm going to take another one of my 1 3/4-inch ones and put it on the other side. Mine happen to be the same, it doesn't matter. So I think I'm going to center this on there and then pull these guys sort of the same distance apart as what we had going on there. I'm then going to take my orange piece. Now this is where I do have to do some shifting. So I'm going to shift this one down a little bit. And I'm going to shift this one over, because I want there to be sort of like a diagonal thing happening here. So this piece here is a 2-inch piece, if I'm not mistaken. It should be your last 2-inch piece. And this guy's going to go there. There we go. That makes me feel better. And then this should be your last 2.5-inch piece. And it's going to go off the page. So we're going to end up trimming that. And we have to move again because I'm noticing I need my last 1-inch piece to go in here. So let's move that one in a bit. And here we go. So this is sort of what we're looking at. Okay. You're going to find your 2.5-inch photo. I don't have a photo at the moment. Maybe I'll put a line around that so you can see it just a little easier. Actually, I'm afraid to do that. Well, yeah, I'm just going to put a little line around it so that you can see where it is on the page, because it's kind of hard to see. You don't need to do this to your photo. Your photo will be visible. There we go. So there's All right, so there's our photo, and it's going to sit right there. Okay. Now, that's all our paper laid out. We need to find from one of our scraps. I have quite a bit of choice here. I want to find a blue that I'm going to mat. And I think I'm going to go with the darker blue that has the stripe, because that's what I have on this side anyway. So I'm going to mat that 3 3/4 inch image. Actually, I think we'll double mat that image. All right, so I've just decided I'm going to keep, so my mat is going to be cut at, it says here 3 5/8. So I'm going to cut this way 4 5/8. So let me just put this down here. 4 5/8. There we go. Oops. Don't want to mess up my work here. Okay. So I got my 4 5/8 mat and 3 5/8. And now I'm going to put some of this washi around the edge. And what I want to do is I'm just going to mark it. I'm going to eyeball it, and I'm going to mark the corners because I don't want to go too much into it. I want to give a little bit, but not a lot. So I'm going to take my pencil and just mark where the tips of the paper is. And then I'm just going to go a smidge beyond the tips of the paper, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So let's start with this side. And I'm going to do the same process as I did before. I'm going to go down and run a piece across. And give it a trim. Okay, so that's not, I'm lining it up in, so I got to make sure I'm lining it up in the corner, not, so we got 1/8 of an inch showing of the blue. There we go. That makes more sense now. Okay, and I'm just going to trim it. There we go. Okay, there we go. So now we have our frame for our 3 by 4 photograph, which I don't have yet, so I am just going to put a fake picture in there, or a non-picture in there. And I'm going to make sure I've rubbed this down all the way around. There we go. Okay, so there's my photo in its fake frame. And now we're going to move all of this back over here. And this is going to go right here. Okay, so inevitably I'm going to be putting my title down here. It won't be a white piece of paper. It will probably be some sort of puffy letters or something. And I'm also going to, actually, let's move that up to just to line up with that. I'm also going to have my journaling in this spot right here. Okay. And then I asked you to get a couple of flowers that might look good on your page and coordinate with your flowers. And there you go. And then we'll put some bling in there afterwards. All right, so this is the basic layout. Now we just need to put it all down. So I'm going to start in this bottom corner and find my tape runner. You don't need an awful lot of tape runner on this project, just little tiny bits. Now I'm going to try to make sure that I have him in there evenly. There we go. And now I'm going to put this guy in. I'm going to split the space between these two. And now that I think of it, I'm going to have him line up with the edge there. So I need to trim that down to 1 3/8. So I'm going to measure over 1 3/8 and trim down. So let's do that here. 1 3/8. So I'm just taking a tiny bit off of that piece so that I can glue that right to the edge. And there we go. Splitting the space between the two objects. There we go. All right. Now this piece I'm going to put in next. It's dropping a little bit lower than the white piece, so I am going to measure that at 1.5 inches. So because this has a direction, I'm taking 1.5 inches across the top. 1.5 inches. And this piece I'm not keeping, it's far too small, but this piece is a good piece. So I'll put that aside. And now let's stick this down. Oops. There we go. Make sure I've got it in the right direction. Right along the edge. And I'm framing this little piece with the same amount of space around it, except for that piece there. Okay, now I'm going to put this piece down. And I'm going to center it in the space that's provided and center it also on this piece. Whoa. So space between this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece is going to be the same there and there, but I'm going to center it on this piece. So I need to give it a little bit more. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to put this piece down. And I like the flourish coming down. So now this is going to go sort of the same measurement of space all the way around. There we go. Okay, this is going to be my photo, so I'm just going to stick a little thing on the back. And my photo is going to go lined with the top of that piece and a little bit further over. I'm going to wait until I get these two pieces on. So let's do this first. So we're going to put this piece right at the top here, just about a 1/16, maybe an 1/8, yeah, an 1/8 down. And give it about the same distance. There we go. I do a lot of eyeballing. And then the second one is going to be centered. So we're going to have more space between these two pieces, but about the same space. So I've got that centered on those two pieces. Now that I've seen that, I'm going to adjust this piece just a little bit so that there's the same distance between those two pieces. There we go. I think that balance is better. And hopefully everything is looking lined up. Can't really go by the dots because the dots are all different sizes. So that looks okay to me. All right. And now this piece can go in that area there. Okay. We're going to leave these because they're not real. And we're going to go up to the top. So the first thing we're going to do is put in our top piece. And I'm going to center it between the top and bottom here. And I'm going to put it in about let me see. I'm going to give it 5/8. All right. So I'm going to cut this piece at 5/8. Which is very hard to do on this. So this is, I want to have the side that doesn't have the dark line. So I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. And now I've got my piece. And this I can use in another project. So let's just get this stuck down. All right, line that up. Again, just eyeballing. There we go. That looks more or less good enough for me. And now this piece is going to come down a short distance from the top, and the distance between this and this and this and this and that are going to be the same, and they're going to be centered on one another. So let's start with the little guy. No, let's start with the big guy because he's going to be probably more problematic. And center the little guy afterwards. So I want to have about the same distance all the way around. That looks pretty good. Stick that down. Now I'm going to center the little 1-inch piece. Underneath that. Something like that. Okay, there we go. And then this piece is going to line up with the bottom of this. Okay, and it has a direction, so I have to make sure that I have the direction right. And I'm going to give this orange piece and this piece the same amount as on this side between those two. Something like that. And then I just need a tiny piece of this. If I'm not mistaken, it's probably 5/8 again. Nope, it's 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to take the bottom 3/4 of an inch, and I can do that because I have a line here. There we go. This goes in my stash. Okay, I'm just going to turn this upside down so I can line it up properly. And this is going to go right against the bottom, lined up with the piece above it. Like that. Alrighty. And then this piece is going to have the same space as the other. Now, actually, I think I'm going to make it slightly smaller, and I have to center it, so I am going to put this guy on first. And this guy, I think, is going to be right at the bottom edge. With the same amount of space as we have everywhere else. There we go. And now this one gets centered in that space. And it does work out to about the same as what's over here, which is perfect. Okay, there's our guys down there. Now we're going to put this guy. And I want to make sure I have room for the flower. I don't mind if the flower goes over this slightly. And I want the distance between here and here to be more or less the same. I want to make sure I have room for my title at the bottom. And at least 3 lines of text with some space in between. So I may have to move this up. Just a little bit. Okay. There we go. And then this can go in there. And we're good to go. So I just stuck this all together. I have to do some work on it. So what I'm doing is lifting up the edges a little bit, give it some more 3D likeness. Rounding the leaves a little. Some of them have wire, so that's kind of a fun thing to do. Then on the bottom, we are going to put some glue because the sequin, actually we're going to do both. We're going to put some sequin first, so we have a base. Or maybe we put glue first, then sequin. That's what we're going to do. We're going to put glue on the edges that we know are going to stick. And then we're going to stick down our glue on top of that. And pull that off. Because sometimes with these cloth, and I'm going to put a little more glue. Sometimes with the cloth flowers, they peel away from the sequin tape. So you need kind of a little bit of everything. Now that's going to fit in there like that. So I'm just going to hold that down for a second. I have quick dry glue. And I'm going to trim off, or just work the metal on this. Okay, that's taking too long. I'll get the tin snips out here, the wire snips. There we go. All right. And then I'm just going to put glue on right on this. On the bottom here. Oh, I don't want it all the way down because it's going to go over top of a photograph. So, only at the top edge. And we're going to have that stick out like that. There we go. And that's going to hang over the photograph. I'm going to grab my Wink of Stella, if I can find it. There it is. And I'm just going to double the Wink of Stella on the ends of the flower. The Wink of Stella is running out. So it kind of gives that kind of frosty look, like it's morning dew or something. Takes a little bit to get it going, and a little bit on these guys. Definitely on these very dull looking stamens. It's nice to get those looking shiny, especially when they're kind of a yucky color. Okay, there we go. A little bit just over the leaves. Random. I try not to have it too wet because otherwise it does sometimes discolor the paint, or sorry, the paper. There we go. So we got a little bit of stuff happening there. Now my title is going to go down here and my text is going to go down here. So I'm only assuming I'm going to have 3 lines of text, but I'm going to make that have to happen. So I have some little dots here, and I'm going to put little dots at the end of the line there, but centered on where my text might be. And I'm going to put 2 green and a red. Oops, move that. There we go. Just so I can have that lined up for when I do put my text there. And what I'm going to do is just put a little piece of washi tape showing me what my idea was for here. Whoops. So that when I come back and finish the page, it will be, I'll have some kind of an idea of what I was thinking at the time. And I'm just going to stick that there so I know where the title is. And now there's just a couple of finishing touches. First of all, I want to put, do I want to put 3 dots there or 3 dots here? Or why not put 1 dot in each location? Make sure they're the same distance apart. There we go. All right, that kind of looks neat. Do I want more dots? That's always the question, right? I think I need 3 dots. Kind of centered. I got enough, so I might as well use them, right? It is tricky to get everything lined up. There we go. There's my green dots. So now when you're looking at the page, you have the glitter. I wonder if I can, you can see it sparkling there, but I can't really get it focused. You have the dots happening. And that's it, folks. Oh, no, it isn't. Sorry, I lied. Because there's a couple of things I want to draw lines on. So some of these are fading into the background. So I'm simply going to go in and bring them into the foreground by putting a line around them. How many I do depends on how I feel. I may even do them all. There we go. Just kind of pops them out a little bit. You know what? I think I am going to do them all. So we're going to go around the edge. Just hand drawn. I don't care if it's wiggly or wobbly. And I will be back to finish that when it's finished. I won't force you to watch. Okay, so I finished doing all of the squares. I decided to do all of them. I think it brings everything up more. And I found these two little stickers, and they're not necessary, but I kind of like them. So I think I'm just going to pop them in the corner of this big guy right here. Actually, I think I will put him like that. I have an idea. Since this one's red, put the red where the green is, and then the green where the red is. Like that. And then I'm just going to trace around the outside edge. So the theme is totally squares. There we go. Just a little something else. All right, and there is our finished layout with squares, something a bit different than what we're used to doing together. And I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please feel free to share with your friends. And don't forget to like my video and subscribe below. Thank you. Bye. See you next week.